Let's take a look at this op-ed written by Democratic Congressman Tom Suozzi. Although I use the word Democrat pretty liberally here, because once you read this article, you'll see that he's not really a Democrat at all. This article, which was written in the Wall Street Journal back in May, brings up several ideas that you would never think a Democrat would be pushing in Congress. So it starts with a conversation about these welders who came by his office and how suddenly Congressman Suozzi has come to the conclusion that we need more of these sort of blue-collared, skilled jobs that can still pay very well. He doesn't actually provide any method of how to get there other than these three completely unrelated policies that he brings up at the end. One thing you might notice as you look at these policies is that none of them really fit the Democratic platform. In fact, almost every single one of them comes out of the Republican platform. So you'll see here he talks about corporate tax reform. In other conversation, he's made it very clear that to him that means lowering taxes on corporations. He also brings up income tax simplification, which is Republican code language for lowering taxes on the wealthy. The third point he brings up is regulatory reform, which is another Republican catchphrase for deregulating the economy. Now, you might think I'm just reading into this in a very negative way, but the fact is, Congressman Suozzi himself notes this when he says right after corporate tax reform, he's saying it's not necessary simply because companies need more money to buy back stock or increase dividends. He brings that up because he knows that's exactly what the companies are going to attempt to do. He also says after tax simplification that it's not just because the wealthy need or want bigger paychecks, but he's very aware that that's exactly what the result will be. After he talks about regulatory reform, he says it's not because workers have too many protections or that consumers have too many protections. So he's also very aware that deregulation is code language for cutting protections for workers and for consumers. So any educated Democratic voter in the district might ask themselves, why is Trickle Down Tom Suozzi proposing Reaganomics, trickle-down Republican economics here? And then you can think about also where he published this, the Wall Street Journal, which is not a newspaper that tends to be read by people on the left. Who was the intended audience for this article? Maybe it's the donors that read the Wall Street Journal and not the voters who actually live in his district and will eventually decide whether or not to vote for Trickle Down Tom. All of these policies have been tested multiple times. Reagan did it and Bush did it. And every time it led to a bubble and then a huge burst, a collapse of the economy, a giant recession. Corporations have made it very clear, and studies have shown that corporate tax cuts do not actually lead to more jobs. They lead to stock buybacks and increased dividends. Everyone knows that lower taxes on the rich never actually trickles down. We've seen massive inequality in the last several decades, and it's only getting worse. Deregulation in the economy led to the collapse in 2008 and massive fraud on Wall Street. So we know what the results of this are going to be. According to the things he said in this paragraph, Tom Suozzi knows what the results are going to be. So when you read through this, you really have to ask yourself, what is Tom Suozzi up to? Why is he pushing these policies? The fact is he is hoping that Democratic voters will be unaware of his positions here, and that moderate Republicans who potentially read the Wall Street Journal will see this and vote for him. Tom Suozzi is a dangerous voice in Congress. He is anti-progressive. He is pushing Republican policies. Trickle Down Tom must be defeated in 2018.